Hello and welcome to The Crime Reel. Our sixth case this week took place in the UK on Halloween 2010. This is a truly disturbing case of coercive control, isolation, intimidation and domestic abuse, which resulted in a woman by the name of Joanna Simpson losing her life. Her friends and family have started the Joanna Simpson Foundation that was set up in her name to help support and protect children who were affected by domestic abuse, violence and murder. They are also campaigning to make sure that the man who is responsible for taking Joanna's life stays behind bars. Please listen to the details of the case, and if you believe that the law in the UK is set up to fail in such cases, please consider visiting the Joanna Simpson Foundation at jsfoundation.org.uk, where there is an easy form to complete to email to your MP or Member of Parliament if you are based in the UK, and there is a petition that can be signed by both UK and non-UK residents. The details of the case are as follows. Joanna was born in Yorkshire and was the daughter of a successful property developer. From my research, it would seem that Joanna had lots of friends and was well liked and respected. She attended the University of Bath and worked for a period as a marketing executive. Her first marriage ended in divorce, and then she met Robert Brown, an airline pilot for British Airways. They met through a mutual friend in March 1998. After a whirlwind romance, they married at the Royal Berkshire Hotel in Ascot in February 1999. It would seem that the marriage was unhappy from the start, with Joanna calling her mother from her honeymoon saying that she'd made a terrible mistake. This was after seeing how rude Robert was to hotel staff. However, within weeks of the wedding, she found out that she was pregnant and committed to make the marriage work. Friends and family noted that Robert was never pleasant to be around. He was arrogant and would constantly put Joanna down, criticising everything from her cooking to her parenting style. One friend had to report Robert to the police for cycling towards her and her children at high speed, only veering away at the last minute. Robert became more and more controlling and abusive towards Joanna. He would monitor her movements while he was away by looking at the burglar alarm to see when she went out or when she went to bed. By July 2007, now with a young son and daughter, Joanna ended the marriage. Robert moved to a rented house in Winkfield, which was approximately 3 miles away. The following month, Joanna applied for a non-molestation order against him. Her signed statement detailed his increasingly frightening behaviour, including one time when he held a very large carving knife to her chest, gripping the back of her neck with his other hand. Robert was given an undertaking whereby he had to stay away from the house for 6 months, and this was subsequently extended for a further 6 months. However, in the months following this, both the CCTV and security lights that Joanna had fitted stopped working due to the cables being cut. As part of the divorce proceedings, Robert had to supply a list of credit card transactions to Joanna's solicitor. This included the purchase of a tracking device that Robert admitted buying to put on Joanna's car. Joanna had given up work after the birth of their second child and, now separated, she converted 3 bedrooms in the large house where she lived into bed and breakfast accommodation. The upmarket B&B was a success, popular with racegoers attending nearby Ascot, and it won several awards. The house, which was valued at approximately £3 million in 2010, had been bought by Joanna 4 years before she met Robert. It had been a wreck at that time, with trees growing through the ceiling, and she spent considerable time and money renovating it. It became the subject of a massive dispute in the divorce that dragged on for 3 years. However, with Joanna's history with the house, she looked set to win the case. On the 30th of October 2010, 46-year-old Joanna was working on her divorce statement in which she wrote, "I consider him to be controlling, intimidating and a bully." The following day she spoke to her close friend, Hetty Bankworth-Nanton, who said that even though the divorce was coming to an end, Joanna seemed quite down, as she was convinced that Robert would find another battle to draw it out further. At 4 p.m. on Halloween 2010, Robert arrived at Joanna's house to return their 2 children, now aged 9 and 10, from a half-term visit. The children ran to the family room, leaving their parents in the hallway, whereupon Robert took a hammer he had packed in the children's bag and bludgeoned Joanna to death. Their children could hear everything. Joanna was hit at least 14 times. She had defensive injuries on her hands and arms, fractures on her eyes, cheeks, nose and skull. When he had finished, he lifted her body into the back of his Volvo and covered her in plastic sheeting. The children saw him do this. He then returned to the house, disconnected the phone, removed the CCTV system and told the children to get back in the car. The children asked if they were taking Mummy to hospital, but instead he dropped them back at the rented house he shared with his then partner, 41-year-old Stephanie Belmere. He collected duct tape, forensic overalls and plastic overshoes from his garage before making the short drive to Windsor Great Park. He went to a secluded area of the park, just a few hundred metres from his house, where he had already dug and prepared a grave. A large garden box which had been lined with plastic sheeting was put in the hole in the ground. He put Joanna's wrapped body in the box, fastened it and covered it with soil. The following morning the police were called at around 8 a.m. The housekeeper couldn't get into the property and there were spots of blood on the driveway. When the police went inside, they found a pool of blood. Within a couple of hours, Robert had been arrested. He was charged with murder on the 4th of November, with Joanna's body being found the following day. It was established that she had died from head injuries caused by blunt force trauma. The case went to court in May 2011. Robert did not deny the killing, but claimed that he was not guilty due to diminished responsibility. Witnesses for the prosecution described the escalating pattern of abuse that ultimately ended in Joanna's brutal death. Her close friend Hetty said that, no matter how devastating it was, we thought, thank goodness there's all this evidence. There's no way he'll get away with it. Robert had brought the murder weapon to the house with him and had prepared for the murder by digging a grave in advance of the crime. The defence tried to claim that Robert had temporarily just lost it. They showed Robert as a charming yet distraught airline pilot and portrayed Joanna as a rich who had pushed him to breaking point, that he was railroaded into marriage and children, and that everything he did was wrong. His defence was that due to the stress of the divorce, and also that his new partner had miscarried, this caused him to suffer an adjustment disorder. An adjustment disorder is an emotional disturbance that interferes with normal functioning, thereby diminishing his responsibility for what he did. The defence psychiatrist backed up this version of events, whilst another disagreed. The prosecution's psychiatrist said that adjustment disorder is a minor form of disorder which is rarely linked to violence and definitely not in keeping with Robert's dismantling of the CCTV immediately after the attack. The jury retired and spent 14 hours deliberating the case before acquitting Robert of murder. There were gasps around the courtroom as the verdict was read out. The judge made the observation that Robert clearly intended to kill and had prepared thoroughly beforehand, adding, "An adjustment disorder is a mild disturbance that rarely leads to outbursts of violence. In your case, it appears to have disappeared immediately after killing your wife." Robert was convicted of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility and was sentenced to 24 years plus a further 2 years for obstructing a coroner. However, as this was a sentence for manslaughter, not murder, the sentence is determinate. A determinate prison sentence is for a fixed length of time. It includes a period of time in prison and a period of time in the community on licence. This means that Robert can automatically be released after serving half his sentence with no risk assessment. As such, he is due to be released in November 2023 after serving just 13 years. Joanna's family and friends are campaigning against the release, fearing for their own safety, the safety of his now adult children, and any other women he may meet in the future. Joanna's friend Hetty stated that the reason we're campaigning is not because we want justice for Joe. We'll never get that. It's not because we're angry and think it's not fair. It's purely because he's a danger. Robert was blocked from moving to a Category D open prison in December 2022, but the threat of his imminent release still remains. If he should be released, he would remain on licence for the remainder of his prison term, but there have been many notable cases of convicts reoffending during this period. Failings in the probation service in England and Wales that do not allow such people to be managed safely in the community have been well documented. It is unclear exactly how Robert will be monitored and if he will be medically assessed. Joanna's family and friends' final hope is that the Secretary of State for Justice, Alex Chalk, who has the power to stop the release of someone with a determinate sentence if there is strong evidence that they are a danger to the public, will do so. If this doesn't happen, Robert will be a free man by the end of the year. As mentioned at the start of this video, if you would like to sign a petition against this or send a letter to your MP urging them to take action, there is a link to the website of the Joanna Simpson Foundation in the written details below. It literally takes a couple of minutes to complete this. Thank you for listening to today's narration. Our final case for this week of videos, which took place during the Christmas period, will be uploaded tomorrow. Thanks again. Stay safe. Goodbye.